football. Welcome to our live Roundup show. It's a show, of course, where there's been a lot of news happening today, and I wanted to kind of do a bit of a roundup to kind of cover some of the big news stories that has happened today, probably tomorrow. So, I talk about it a little bit and share some of my thoughts on it. And so, please do share your thoughts as well in the comments section. Do share your thoughts, smash a like on this video, of course, if you enjoyed it. Or if you do enjoy it, of course, and I would love to hear your thoughts. So please feel free to do that. Right, and let's get into it. Let's get right into it because there's a lot for us to discuss, and we'll start off with one that we've already kind of talked about before. Antony, sent on a leave of absence by Manchester United. Which is an interesting choice of word because I think they wanted to stay away from the fact that they've not suspended him. But at the same time, I think they didn't also want to kind of let him go scot free. So they said he's on a leave of absence. Now, in many ways, this is a good decision because whether he's, the courts will decide whether he's innocent or guilty. I really don't want to talk about. I don't think we should talk about the facts of the case. I don't think we should talk about the case at all because that is something for the prosecutors, the law, the justice system to decide, and we'll let them do their job. But just the fact that there's been so many different testimonies that have come about on this case is the fact that there's been so many things that have been said, so many things that have been put out there. It's just not a conducive environment for him to be playing football in, and it's not a conducive environment for his other teammates and for his manager to have to accommodate him in the team. So I think the right decision has been taken, whether it is from the fact of the point that what is being said is true, or whether it's from the fact of the point that he needs time to kind of just clear his head, to kind of address these charges that have been put against him and to kind of get out of that particular situation. The reality is that the club had to take some sort of action, and they have taken this action, and put him on a leave of absence, which I think is absolutely the right decision. I know the footballing considerations here don't matter, and they don't matter, but the reality, I think, is also that in a footballing sense, I think it does make sense that you take him out of that firing line. It might benefit Manchester United Football Club as well because he hasn't been that great on the pitch either. So, but yeah, let's hope. What I would say though, I think in regards to this case, I think is that the one thing that you would hope for is that you get a speedy resolution. I think that's the most important thing. Whatever, and I know we shouldn't be saying that because we want people to be taking due course, their due time to make a proper case, to kind of address the charges, to make sure that justice is meted out. But I sometimes feel that when these things, as they drag on, it gets more and more difficult for people to kind of come to the right verdict. Like we saw what happened with Mason Greenwood, where eventually the alleged witnesses just backed out, and we never got resolution of whether Mason Greenwood was actually innocent, actually guilty. Obviously, a lot of the evidence pointed to perhaps him being guilty, but we don't know. And then Manchester United come up with stupid statements like, "Well, we thought he was innocent." That's what it is, right? So what you want is you want a speedy resolution so that the victims, whoever the victims may be in this case, I think they need to get the proper course of justice. So I do hope for that. But that being said, we'll let the prosecutors do their job. We'll let the justice system do its job. We're not going to comment on the facts of the case. We're not going to comment on whether he's innocent, whether he's guilty. I'm not going to comment on all of that. We'll just wait and see how that unfolds. But in this moment in time, it's a good decision taken by Manchester United. Moving on to talk about another bit of a consensual issue, and that was with I don't know how else to put it, but Luis Rubiales resigns as the president of Spanish football. Again, this was a case that came about where had it he kissed Jenny Hermoso, of course, at the World Cup presentation ceremony when Spain won the World Cup, and the question was it consensual? Was it not? Rubiales said that it was consensual. Obviously, Hermoso said that it wasn't, and it was a whole media storm. And quite frankly, I feel that the way that the Spanish Federation has handled this case again is very naive, very, very amateurish, very, very backward, and definitely very, very mishandled. I think we've got to say that because the reality is, it was something that Rubiales probably did. It was a mistake and it was the wrong action. But I'm not even trying to say that, oh no, it's not his fault. It was his fault. He shouldn't have done that. But having done that, you've got to apologize and you've got to take action. Right? Mistakes happen. Not these kind of mistakes, but I've always believed that people deserve second chances. This is something that I've said a long time ago, and I know it's not PC to say that in this world, but I do believe in second chances. But second chances are not given just because you ask for a second chance. Second chances are given when you've shown that you've learned from your mistakes and you've grown past them, and you've you've done better. to kind of get through that. And I think Luis Rubiales never showed that. He was always like, well, I didn't make a mistake. It was consensual. I didn't do this. When you say stuff like that, and then you kind of double down, and then you kind of go and make a big hoorah speech in front of everybody from the Spanish football. You do all of that. It's just that was just that it was just never going to fly. It was just never going to work. And that's just the arrogance of a man who does not believe. And you can't recover from a mistake if you don't accept that you made a mistake, right? You can't grow, or you can't move past an error in judgment or an error of action unless you admit that you made an error. So that's what it was. When you do all these rara speeches and stuff, you're just showing that you've not grown past it, you've not recovered from it. And so that media storm, that storm was always going to be there. And the reality is that whatever action has been taken was the right course of action. There was no other course of action that could have been taken. He had to go. He had to resign. He had to leave his post, because that it just wasn't going to fly the way that he was acting, the way the federation was acting. I mean, talking about moving, getting out of FIFA. Did he really think that the clubs were going to let him get out of UEFA? The clubs were going to. Did anyone really believe in the right mind that Real Madrid, Barcelona, these kind of clubs would say, right, we're not going to participate in the Champions League this year. Let Rubiales stay in charge. I mean, that was just never going to fly. The clubs were always going to, if that was true, the clubs were always going to side with with UEFA, and they were always going to be putting more pressure on. They were not Rubiales' allies. If anything, they would be against him if he made such a move. And Barcelona, anyway, just a quick joke that Barcelona can't afford to not be in the Champions League. They're skin. They can't afford to not be in the Champions League this season. But that being said, it was scattered all around. It was an error in judgment. It was arrogance. It was this misreading of the situation where some people in power thought they had more power than they actually did. Thought they had more. They were more protected and more insular than they actually were, and ultimately it caught up to them, and they've had to take action. And this is the result of that. And Rubiales has to resign. And it's the right move. It's the right decision. It's the right decision that Rubiales has taken. It's the right step that the federation has taken in putting pressure on him to resign, belatedly, but it's the right step. And I think this is the right sort of, series of events that have unfolded after the unfortunate incident that happened. Since then, I think it's the right sort of, set of events that have happened. That there's been a lot of outrage. There's been a lot of talk about this. This is not okay. If it was not consensual, it is not okay. And I am inclined to believe that if Journey Hermoso said that it was not consensual, then I am inclined to believe her, and therefore I agree that action had to be taken, and he had to go. That's just simple as that. There's nothing beyond more than that to say. That whatever else happened after that was unfortunate and shouldn't have happened, and that is something that the Spanish Football Federation will have to learn from for the future. That they have to know that these kind of things don't fly, and that they cannot compromise the integrity of the institution at the expense of one individual. And that is what they tried to do. One individual thought he was above the institution. He thought he was in power and controlled the institution, and therefore he tried to bend the institution to his will, and the institution bent to his will. And ultimately, what happened was the other stakeholders around the institution had to go and tell the institution, you can do whatever the fish you want. We are not going to support you in this, because if you want to be out of this, we're not going to support you on this. And that's when they realize that true power, they don't really have the power that they claim to have or that they think they have. And then the federation had to dissociate itself from the individual, and the individual has to pay the price, which he should have paid. But this could have all have been avoided if there had been an apology, there had been firm action taken right away, there's swift action taken right away, followed by or preceded by an apology. That was all that was needed, and then you could move on. You could do whatever you want, but ultimately that's not how it happened. And so this is where we are now. But let's see how it unfolds. I think Spain are in a good period at this moment in time. The national football team, both the men's and women's, are doing really well, and this kind of unnecessary distraction was just going to take away from that. So I think it's a good step, and hopefully Spanish football can continue to do its talking on the pitch and doesn't have to worry about shit that's happening outside of the pitch. That's just what I'm going to say on that. Keeping with the national teams, though, another breaking news, of course, was Hansi Flick resigning from the German national team. And again, this was something that was coming as well. 4-1 defeat to Japan. I mean, all due respect to Japan. Japan are a good side, but they're not a side that should be beating Germany 4-1. There's no way that a Japanese side should ever be beating a German side 4-1 without there being consequences to follow for Germany. I mean, this is it has been a steady decline. Unfortunately, this has been happening long before Flick. I feel that overstayed his welcome way beyond. I think he should have gone after the 2016 World Cup, Euros. The 2016 Euros, after that he should have gone. I don't think he should have overseen the 2018 World Cup. I don't think he should have overseen the 2020 Euros, which was in 2021. But he should have gone definitely after the 2016 Euros. But for some reason, they kept hanging on to him, hanging on to him. He finally left out the Euros. Flick came in. It was a very difficult job for Flick, I have to say, because Germany at the moment are at a crossroads where a lot of the old guard are still there when they shouldn't be there, but there are no young players really coming through to replace that old guard. And it was a whole period of transition. And Flick came in, and I think what happened with Flick was he was trying to implement the Bayern style of football on into the international realm. It doesn't work that way because the Bayern style is so drilled in about training. When you're at club level, it's very different, right? You have got players every day, you train with them every day, you coach them every day, you can train them in your style of play every day. But international football, you don't get that sort of luxury. Everybody plays different. No, not everybody plays the same styles. Many people play different styles. Many people are trained in playing different styles, and then you bring them together and say, right, we're all going to play this particular way. It doesn't always work. So and then you can't, and there's egos, right? You can't leave certain players out of the side. Even if they don't fit your system, you have to play them because there's not a big pool. It's not like you can go and buy somebody and sell somebody, right? In international football. So I think he came into a very difficult situation. That being said, I don't think the results were that great. I mean, to be knocked out of at the group stages of the World Cup was an embarrassment, obviously. And then beyond that, to have the sort of result, their European qualifying hasn't been that great either. Results haven't been that good. So it was time for a change, and it was well overdue for a change. And they have made that change, so it's commendable. They needed to, and it's sad for Flick because at one point he was one of the bright young coaches, not just in German football but in European football. But I think after what happened, he fell out at Bayern, his stock dropped. Now he went to Germany, he's not done well there, his stock has dropped even further. What's next for him is a question, isn't it? Where does he go next and what does he do next will be something to watch. As far as Germany are concerned, Rudy Fuller is going to be taking, at the moment he's going to be taking training, he's going to be taking charge of the team for the next game that's coming up. So he'll be doing that. After that, they'll try and bring in a new manager. Julian Nagelsmann has been listed as the favorite to take over the job, which I'm kind of intrigued by. Nagelsmann, again, another former Bayern coach. It's almost like after Bayern, the only thing left for these coaches is to go and coach Germany, right? Will Nagelsmann want the German job? I almost feel like if he takes a Germany job, it will be like Antonio Conte at Italy. It'll be like that. It will be a short-term deal where he does one tournament, maybe two, because the Euros are next year, so there's not a lot of lead time. But he might just do the Euros and maybe he'll do the World Cup for 2-3 years. I don't see him being a long-term manager. In any case, I mean, international managers rarely go past 4 or 6 years. Löw was really an exception that he hung on for almost 14, 15 years. That's not really how it's supposed to be. Usually international managers 4, 6 years, that's how they go. So but I feel Nagelsmann would probably have been good as a one tournament manager. Conte did one tournament and then he left, and I think it might be the same for Nagelsmann as well. He might do one tournament and leave. Maybe he'll do two because of the time period, but I don't see him doing more than two tournaments for Germany. But it would be I don't know how successful, but again, it's international management is really not for young managers. I think it's more for those who are already experienced, who no longer want that stress of having to do day-to-day club football. They prefer it's a little bit easier, it's a little bit more tactical, a little bit more nous in international football, and usually that's the kind. But maybe Nagelsmann might fancy, maybe he might be interested to do it a couple of years and get his stock back up, and then maybe look for a bigger job again. So maybe that's a possibility as well. But it's one to keep an eye on as to what happens with Nagelsmann. But I'm intrigued to see what happens with the German team as well. Like, who do they get as a coach? What kind of leeway does the manager have in terms of like the changes to be made? Because Germany as a team need a lot of changes. There's a lot that needs to be done. They're still relying on a lot of the old guard who need to be moved on. The question is, are there players that are coming in? Is it a matter of favorites, or is it a matter of players not being there to be able to replace them? I think that's a major question that will need to be answered by the new manager, whoever comes in, and we'll have to wait and watch. I do feel there's talent there. I do feel that Germany have the talent to replace some of the old guard. It might not be the kind of talent, ready-made, world-class talent, but I think they have players that they can start building a new team around, and I think it needs to happen. And maybe Flick didn't want to do it, or maybe Flick was too loyal to some of the players, but it needs to happen. And maybe somebody coming in, who's not from a Bayern clique. I think that might be the somebody comes in who's not from the Bayern. Now, I know Bayern are very powerful in Germany and they have a lot of influence over the German national team. That's there. But if somebody can come in and say, right, this is going to be my team. I don't care, which club you play for. I'm not going to bow down to Bayern's wishes. I'm not going to bow down to Dortmund's wishes. I'm not going to bow down to any club's wishes. I'm going to do what's best for Germany. If they can get somebody in like that, and maybe Nagelsmann is a good choice from that perspective because he and Bayern are not on that great terms anyway. So he's not going to be like he's probably going to be screw you Bayern anyway. So you need somebody like that who's going to come in and say, I don't care. right? It's for me, it's about performances and about who's the best players, who's the best 23, 25, 27 players who can play for Germany. I think that's the most important thing. So I'm gonna take a sip there. Anyway, that's on Flick and Germany. And we'll move on to some other news now as well. Those are, I think, the three big news. But also, Marco Verratti finally has completed his move to Al Arabi in Qatar. This was something that's been going on for a while. Marco Verratti has been on the boards of leaving PSG, I think, for months. We did a couple of reels about this as well before. There's a lot of talk about him leaving and where is he going to go? Who is he going to play for? And there's just no clear answer, no clear clarity. But that is now done because here we go from Fabrizio Romano. He's going to go to Al Arabi in Qatar. He's been wanting out of PSG for a while anyway, so I think this is a good move for him. I think PSG will get a decent transfer fee for him as well. Probably not in the region that they were expecting, but they'll get a good fee for him, so that will help them with their FFP stuff as well. They've spent a lot of money this summer, but at the same time, I think they made a lot of good sales as well. Sorry, what's happened? But getting money for Neymar, getting money for Verratti, being able to keep Mbappe as well, I think it's really helped them out a lot. So I think a lot of the FFP things have been on their side, and this is another good step in that direction. So all the best to Verratti, and I hope he does well at Al Arabi. As I said before, I think a player who's phenomenally talented. At one point in time, was seen as one of the big, one of the next big things in midfield, around Europe. I remember when I used to play FIFA. This is a bit of a side story, but I remember when I used to play FIFA. I think in the mid 2010s, my midfield two was always Verratti and Pogba. Those were the two I used to always buy and put them in my whatever team I played for. I'd be like, I want Verratti and Pogba in my midfield. I'd put those two because you thought because they had very high potential ratings, right? And so you put those two together, you almost set in midfield. Unfortunately, neither of them lived up to the hype. Neither of them became the players that they were supposed to be. And Verratti, of course, did win a European Championships with Italy, so you could say he's, and Pogba did win a World Cup with France. So they did achieve some things, but I don't think either of them ever became those truly world class, players that they were supposed to be. When you talk about the top midfielders of the last decade, you would probably want to put, but you would have been forgiven for thinking that you would have Verratti and Pogba in that list somewhere at some point, and yet neither of them probably make the top five midfielders in Europe list, probably not even top 10, if I'm being honest, in terms of central midfielders in Europe in the last 5 years, 6 years that you want to pick. They don't make that list, so it's sad. But at the same time, I think that is just that's how football works, right? Not everybody becomes what they're meant to be, and sometimes that's a good thing, because they become better than what they were meant to be, and sometimes they just don't achieve the heights that they're supposed to be. They don't just achieve they don't just get to where you expect them to get. And maybe the question is, should he have left PSG sooner? Should he have gone to a better league? Maybe bettered himself. Those are all what if questions. We can't answer those. Much like Eden Hazard, who is still unsure. I mean, it's unclear. And they're saying that he's still a free agent, so I'm not sure if his retirement is official yet. I think it is. Some places saying it's official. Some are saying he's still considering, like he's still a free agent. Is his agents are still trying to get him to come back? I'm not sure what's going on with him. I think he's retired. I think he has retired. I think it's just there's no official word that has gone out yet saying that he has retired. But I think he has retired, which is a shame, because I think his career deserved a better send off than the one that he had with Real Madrid, leaving just not even getting a farewell game, or just quietly disappearing into the night. It was sad for a player who promised so much at one point in time. I remember there was a bidding war for him when he went to Chelsea, and looked like a can't miss player. Really, really was very, very good. Unfortunately, after that, he went to Real Madrid, and his career just declined as quickly as like a stone. It just dropped like a stone, which is saying something, because maybe he should have dropped a stone or two in weight, and maybe it might have been better. But I don't know what happened. He just gained a bit of weight when he went to Real Madrid, and he just could never shake it off. And even when he could shake it off, I think he just even though I think his fitness came back a little bit, but he lost that sharpness. Just even though he was fit, he lost that sharpness. He lost that little bit of that unpredictability, that magic. It was gone, and his career just never recovered after that. And it's sad. But again, like I said, sometimes you don't get the endings that you want in football. That's why football is real life, right? Isn't it? It's not a movie. We want it to be a movie sometimes, but sometimes it's just not a movie. You just don't get the happy endings or the fairy tale endings. That's what it is. But nonetheless, it's sad, isn't it? It's just sad. And then talking about sad, without another player who's probably wasting his talent, it's Jadon Sancho. And now again, reports are suggesting that Jadon Sancho will not. It is unlikely that he's ever going to make his way back into the Manchester United squad under Eric Ten Hag. Now, this is an important line, under Eric Ten Hag. which is very interesting because Eric Ten Hag, who knows how long he's going to be at Manchester United. He's going to be he's under a lot of pressure at this point, and that's why we don't know what's going to happen against Brighton. They're going to play Brighton and Bayern, and then Burnley. And I fully expect that I fully expect Brighton and Bayern are going to hammer them. And then it comes down to what happens against Burnley. If Burnley beat them as well, then I think there's going to be a lot. Then the question is, will the Glazers resist pulling the trigger? Because you know what happens after every defeat. It's not always Ten Hag. It won't. It may not be. It will be Ten Hag out, but it'll also be Glazers out. That's going to trend, and Glazers don't like that. So there's very much that there will be itchy fingers, particularly if they lose to Burnley. But we'll see what happens. But it is a tenuous position at this point in time that I would say with Ten Hag, and that pressure is on Sancho as well because he's just not there. He's just not the kind of responses that he's put on the media. Apparently, Ten Hag is not happy about that. The players are not happy with him as well. Apparently, they're fed up with him. They don't haven't been impressed with his training performances. There's a video that was doing the rounds with him, like kind of skipping training, really, taking it lightly. So he's doing that as well. So there's a lot of things that are now coming out and surfacing, and I think that they're talking about Jadon Sancho and not really painting him the best of light. I don't think he is necessarily as bad as the media is portraying him to be, but that being said, I don't think he's been at his best behavior either. So it's anyone's guess what's going to happen. There's always a way back, I believe. He's got to now. The thing I think is that this is it, right? This is it. This is breaking point, right? Now from here, Sancho can decide if he wants to be the guy who's just going to have a conversation and then decide to leave Manchester United because he doesn't want to, fight. He's fallen out of the manager. He's got the ego where he thinks that I shouldn't have to do all of this. I don't need this. I'm gonna go and play somewhere else, right? Is that, or is he gonna come out and in his mind he's gonna be, the manager has criticized me. Maybe it's harsh, maybe it's justified, but I need to go out and prove him wrong. I need to go into training on Tuesday when everybody comes back. I'm gonna go into training and I'm gonna work my ass off to show him that I'm not someone who takes it lightly. I'm not someone who goes. I'm going to work harder than ever to prove him wrong. I'm going to train harder. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to become a starter for Manchester United because that's what I deserve. I deserve to be a starter, not a bench player. And then I will prove everyone wrong. This is the mindset that you need to have. Does he have that mindset, or does he have the mindset of the manager is crap? Who the hell does he think he is to tell me that I don't train hard? Like, what the hell? I've been training very well. I'm doing very well. I just don't get a chance to play. The manager doesn't play me. These people are telling me I do really well. I'm doing quite well. I don't think I'm that bad. The match is crap. Forget it. I don't need this. Call my agent. I'm gonna call my agent. I'm gonna get myself a move out of this club. I don't want to be here anymore. That's the question, right? That's it's a matter of attitude. Which way does he want to go? We'll see what happens. Of course, I hope he chooses the first option because I know there's a player there, and you always want players to do well. It doesn't matter who the player is. You always want players to do well and prove you wrong. As a commenter, as I'm just a commenter, as a fan, I want to when I criticize a player, I want to be proven wrong, right? And I want to be told that I want to say that. I want to say, damn, I was wrong, right? I criticized that player, but I was wrong. You know what? He's shown me that he can do it. He's shown me that he can be better. I mean, then Martinez, last season I criticized Lisandro Martinez and I said he's never going to be a Premier League centre half. And he proved me wrong last season. Now this season again, he's done some, he's not been that good. But last season he proved me wrong, and I was more than happy to say, you know what, I was wrong about him. This guy has got something, and I was wrong about him. So I never have a problem saying that I'm wrong about a player. I actually enjoy it. If I criticize someone and they prove me wrong, I actually like it because that means that player has done well, and that's good, right? That's what you want. So that's where I'm at with that. But let's see what happens. Let us see how Jadon Sancho reacts to this because that will be critical and pivotal. It's his attitude. That's the only thing that's holding him back now is his attitude. And if he improves his attitude, not that he will be starting games or that he'll become a world-class player, but at least he will give himself a chance to succeed at Manchester United. But that is all up to him and how he handles this. And finally, I think the last thing we'll talk about is England because, well, England. Why don't we talk about England? Southgate has come under a bit of criticism as well. I mean, I watched a bit of the game England versus Ukraine. It was, to be honest, quite tedious. I mean, it's the kind of game that you really don't want to be watching. It was the kind of sort of game that you expect as well. Ukraine parked the bus. England couldn't break them down. Finished 1-1. And there was a video that was doing the rounds, of course, of what Maguire did, another Maguire blooper where, he there's the break that leads to the goal. There's a cutback, and Maguire basically, leaves his post and runs towards Gerhi, who's marking the striker, and goes and hugs him. Almost like he's trying to tackle Gerhi instead of his striker, his man, and then Zinchenko strolls in, and the post that he could have been marking, it's a goal. Now, it was a lot of criticism of Maguire. I don't tactically. I mean, the reality is I don't. It's a two-way thing, right? It's not. If you look at the strictest sense of the word, it's not his fault. That goal is not his fault because it comes from the midfield, which is Rice or Bellingham. Somebody should have been marking Zinchenko because that's where he makes the run from. So he should be being marked by the midfielder, not by Maguire. So it's not really his fault. But that being said, good defenders or great defenders, they anticipate things, right? And not that he had to anticipate where Zinchenko was, but he needs to anticipate that Gay is marking the striker. So he's got that, and the goalkeeper's got the near post covered. So I need to make sure that if there's a shot on the far post, I am there, right? Yes, it's the job of the fullback to mark the post, but I should make sure that I'm in a position where I can make a block. And Maguire, if you look at that video, he was not in a position to make that block. Now that's not his fault. The goal is not his fault, but he could do better as an England international defender. He could do better, and I think that is the story of Maguire. Even when he does okay, it is always the case of he could do better, that there's something better. And I think that's the thing. But the criticism is why is Southgate picking Maguire? Why is he picking Jordan Henderson? Henderson, of course, has moved to the Saudi League. Apparently, there's talk that he's not a very good league. So why is he playing in the Saudi League and then expecting to be starting for England? Maguire, of course, has not played much for Manchester United. He shouldn't have played any of the Premier League games. So he played the last one against Arsenal because there was a couple of injuries. He was woeful in that game. So why is he starting? And I think it's a valid question to ask. And I feel Southgate, as much as anyone, has created this issue for Harry Maguire at Manchester United because I'm pretty sure at some point Maguire has had a chat with Southgate, right? Like all players have a chat. He's had a chat with Southgate and he said to him, Southgate or Gareth, I am not going to be a starter for Manchester United, right? Director Nag has pretty much told me this. Like I can see it. I'm not going to be a starter for Manchester United, but they're not giving me 12 million pounds, which I need to leave. So is it okay if I stay at Manchester United? Am I still going to be in the England squad? And Gareth Southgate has probably gone and said, you can probably, it's okay, stay till January, right? You can stay there till January. If the situation doesn't improve, you can leave in January, but you can stay till January, you'll still be picked in the England squad. Because there is no way that Harry Maguire is going to, is going to stay at the club, or he's not going to try harder to leave the club if he was told that his England place is under threat. If that is the case, then if that was the case, then I think it's a bit embarrassing. And the reality is, Maguire got selected for this England squad even though he hadn't played a single minute of Premier League football at the time that the squad was announced. And he's starting in the European qualifier game. He's starting. It's not a friendly. They're playing a friendly, I think, in a couple of days against Scotland. Now, if he had started that game, I would have said that's fine. It's a friendly. It's okay. He's not first choice, but he's starting the qualifier. That means he's still a key player for Southgate. And I just don't know how that works with him. And I think the criticism is justified on that front because he shouldn't be starting those games. The Jordan Henderson case is a little bit different because I feel Henderson is one of the trusted lieutenants for Southgate, much like Maguire. But I think Henderson has had a couple of good performances in the England t-shirt. He's done well. And so I think Southgate was just kind of, going with that and saying, right, he's had a few good England games, so let him start. This one, I think if Henderson starts, and if he starts a friendly, that's okay. But the competitive games that are coming up for England in the October schedule, if he starts those, then I think you can start asking questions. Then if he doesn't play well, if he starts them and doesn't play well in them, then you can ask questions. But I think for now, it was fine because I think he's had a couple of good games for England recently. So it's fine to play him in these ones. I felt it was okay to play him in these ones because you don't always keep chopping and changing, right? Sometimes when a player does well, you do reward that, um, you know, and sometimes you have to do that. Maguire for me, I think a lot of people say Maguire has never had has never let England down, and I always look at that and wonder, is that actually true? Has he never let England down? Because the reality is that a lot of times I hear people saying, he was a big reason why England got relegated from the Nations League. I think that the game that they lost, he actually had a hand in. He actually had a pretty poor game in the game that England lost to get themselves relegated. Right, he had a pretty bad. So has he never let England down? Really, he has let England down. It's just that international games happen so few and far between. England don't play a lot of big teams regularly. It's not like South America where Argentina and Brazil play so often because of how the qualifiers are staged, how the fact that they have Copa Americas almost every year. So it's not like that. It's England. There'll always be games against the Maltas, San Marinos, the Gibraltars of the world, right? They're going to play those teams. They're not going to play Germany or Spain or France. They're not going to play them all the time. They played Italy quite a lot, but they don't play those kind of teams. And so therefore they're never really going to get. You're going to play them maybe over the course of 4 years. England might play those, Germany or France or Spain. They might have 5 or 6 matches against that caliber of team across 4 years. They might have 5 or 6 matches. That's about it, right? When England don't even make the Nations League semi-finals, so others they play them more, but they don't even make those. So they don't play a lot of big teams very often. So how do you actually? So the thing is, a lot of times these performances kind of go under the radar because you're playing the smaller teams and you're doing well against that, and so people forget these sort of games. And of course, people remember World Cup knockout games, but those again, those are European Championship knockout games, but those are 1, 2 every 4 years. So it's very, very difficult to say that Maguire has not let England down. I think he has let England down quite often. It's just that those performances get masked by the other good ones that he has against the San Marinos and the Cypresses and all those sort of Kazakhstans of the world. He does well against those teams, but when it comes to the big games, he flops, and he will flop, and he will continue to flop for England. And this until unless Southgate gets away from the obsession of having to play Maguire every time and realizing that there's better options out there, I think he will always continue to struggle. But I'm not England manager. England are not my team, so it's not my thing to worry about. But it does impact Manchester United because when he plays for England and he's a starter, he kind of thinks that wow, I'm this great. I'm England's one of England's top two centre halves. I'm one of the top two centre halves in England. I should be a starter for Manchester United. West Ham United are beneath me. Luton Town are beneath me. But actually, you know what? That's your level. That is your level, and that's why you need to be playing. But that's what it is. Anyway, right. So I've got a nice little session there. Covered a lot of different grounds. I'll give my opinion on that. If you enjoyed this video, do smash a like on it and do share your comments about everything that I've said. Do you agree with that? Do you not agree with that? Do you think I'm being too harsh on Maguire? Do you think I was being too harsh on Flick? Do you think something that I said that may be controversial, that may be not right? I know a lot of things that I said may not always resonate with a lot of people, so feel free to let me know. Always love to hear your thoughts. Share that in the comment section. Do remember to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're getting very close to 410 subscribers on YouTube, so please do subscribe to our channel. I know I've not done a lot of videos recently. I've been a little bit slow. It's international break. I've not really been feeling it, but I thought I should do one today. I should do a live show today. That's why I did this rather than doing a few reels. I really wanted to kind of elaborate on things, and so I've done that. So I hope you did enjoy it, and I hope it does make up a little bit for all the absences. But feel free to subscribe. Definitely appreciate your support in going this challenge. Really appreciate everybody who's been putting out the comments, who's been talking. So many. I've had so many nice things that people have said, and I really appreciate all of that. All of you, thank you so much. Please keep them coming. Please keep the good vibes coming, the good thoughts coming, even the negative criticism. I don't mind it. Please do share that as well. Always love to learn from those. So please share that as well. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.